21st, 2018 afternoon session of the Portland City Council. I think we can skip the messaging, Robert, and if we need it later, we'll do that. Save some time here. First item.
Behave yourselves.
That's right.
Yes, be nice. Item 692.
Do you take a roll call?
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Sure. Fish, Saltzman, Udaley.
Here.
Fritz.
I'm here. I think for the record we should state that there are no members of the public here, which is why we can skip the announcement.
Wheeler.
I'm also here, but I'm keeping an eye on Mustafa just in case. 692, please.
Update on affordable commercial space bonus administrative rules.
So, colleagues, I'm pleased that Prosper Portland has moved forward with this program. Affordable commercial space, especially for new businesses, is obviously getting more difficult to find and harder to afford as our city grows. These administrative rules will ensure that developers taking advantage of the affordable commercial space bonus are required to agree to provide a high level of tenant improvements and lease the spaces to qualified businesses for a period of 10 years or pay into a fund to support affordable commercial space. What I like most about this program is that it will ensure that spaces are prioritized for local businesses or nonprofits, women-owned businesses and businesses owned by people of color, and businesses and nonprofits that serve historically underserved communities. I want to thank Prosper Portland for taking these steps to keep Portland moving towards a more equitable economy and towards ensuring that there are more equal distribution of opportunities towards economic success. And so with that, I will turn this over to the Prosper Portland team. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler, Commissioners. My name is Kira Strausman. I'm the Director of Development and Investment for Prosper Portland. And my colleague, Allison Wicks, who is a project coordinator for our Affordable Commercial Program, joins me today. We have been before you to talk about both the Affordable Commercial Bonus Program that we have hashed out with the Planning Commission. So we will talk materially about how these complementary administrative rules that we have developed support the MUZ FAR bonus that have been proposed in the 2035 Central City Update, and walk you through today what those are. But I think the larger message, and Mayor Wheeler hit...
About 6 inches away.
Sorry. Are we good?
That's better.
Yeah,
Sorry
they're
about that.
very sensitive mics. In fact, sorry, Carlo, could we possibly get some little like tent cards just for the front, just to let people sort of know that the microphone, I know at the state legislature, they have little signs that say
Sure we could.
sensitive microphone 6 inches.
Just little labels we could stick on them.
Yeah, it might just be helpful.
Some of those plastic
I have a
straws we're not
label
going to be
maker.
using anymore.
Exactly, we'll make an artwork out of plastic straws. It does that.
Yes.
Yeah, very good. See, we've
ask
only been
somebody.
in session for 2 minutes. We've already resolved a
Solved
Solve
major
the
issue.
problem. I love it. I love it. The problem that I think we're all venturing to solve for our small businesses are the ever-increasing pressures of gentrification, not just when it comes to affordability for residential, for people that are looking for homes, but the pressures that are coming to our community-based business districts, and really trying to solve for the ongoing pressure on pricing that really can often be very discouraging, particularly to businesses that haven't had access to space generally in the past. When you walk into commercial leasing, the legal environment and construction environment is highly complicated. And I think we're also trying to support businesses not only by endeavoring to hold their costs low in our commercial affordable program, but also to improve the level of technical service that we can offer folks that are venturing into retail for the first time at the street level and really need the support. So what we're going to present today is the administrative rules for the MUZ bonus on FAR that supports our affordable commercial, but in a comprehensive acknowledgement that Prosper Portland, along with the Mayor's Office and all of you, have been working on a suite of responsible adaptations to work that we're already doing inside of Prosper Portland to support small businesses and businesses of color and women-owned businesses. So we're eager to hear your input on both the bonus program that we're going to present and how we're going to administrate that, but also on any of your thoughts on how we can be better at Prosper Portland, better partners with you and the city in general to support our small businesses' claims in neighborhood business districts, which is really ultimately our aim here. So my colleague, Allison Wicks, is going to walk you through kind of how we got here today, just a reflection on that, and talk to you about the technical aspects of the administrative rules, and then we'll go on from there and welcome all of your questions. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So to kick us off, You last saw us in November 2017 for an update on the affordable commercial framework that we've been working on at Prosper Portland. I'm going to go over a high-level review of that framework, and then also review the affordable commercial space bonus program and the administrative rules that will guide this program. We worked really closely with the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability to put this program together, and one of the main things that we heard from the Planning and Sustainability Commission was they also wanted to have City Council see this program as well. So before I jump into the Affordable Commercial Space Program, I wanted to take a slide to review the Prosper Portland Affordable Commercial Framework. To us, commercial affordability is not just one thing. It's not a reduced rent rate or free space. At Prosper Portland, we're developing a comprehensive framework to address the citywide issue of commercial affordability. The framework is made up of 3 sets of tools: access to public and private space, business coaching and technical assistance, and financial support. We currently have 4 projects that we're piloting these different affordable commercial tools. 2 are located in Lentz Town Center, Oliver Station and Lentz Commons. One is in Northeast Portland, Alberta Commons, and one is located downtown the 10th and Yamhill Garage, which we're master leasing ground floor space from the Portland Bureau of Transportation. So the affordable commercial bonus kind of sits with these 4 pilot projects where we're testing different tools to access space, but each of these projects includes all 3 components of the framework. So we've been working closely with the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability to define the affordable commercial space bonus. The concept of an affordable commercial bonus came out of an effort to consolidate the available bonuses in the City of Portland 2035 Comprehensive Plan. As I'm sure you recall, there used to be a suite of, I think, 10 different bonuses that a developer could access. And now we've kind of really narrowed it down to the FAR bonuses available through inclusionary housing and the affordable commercial space bonus. The code language for the Affordable Commercial Space Bonus was recently edited through the Code Reconciliation Project, which was passed by City Council on May 24th, 2018. Prosper Portland staff worked with the Bureau and Planning and Sustainability on the structure of this bonus and the administrative rules starting about a year ago. We were asked to look at if the affordable commercial code language was written in a way that we agreed with, and decide if this was an affordable commercial tool that we wanted to pursue. We convened a stakeholder advisory committee, which consisted of Planning and Sustainability Commission members, as well as members from local business districts, the broker community, and the developer community. They reviewed different program options for this bonus and made a recommendation, which was presented to the Planning and Sustainability Commission last fall, and we worked with them through the Code Reconciliation Project to vet this program through this past spring. Last week, the Prosper Portland Board of Commissioners approved the administrative rules to guide the Affordable Commercial Bonus Program. So the Affordable Commercial Space Bonus has a set of 5 goals to help provide and stabilize commercial space along mixed-use commercial corridors, to ease the challenge of commercial gentrification and business displacement, to support businesses led by communities of color, women-owned businesses, and other marginalized individuals, to increase the availability of affordable space, and to reduce barrier of entry into new construction commercial space. The Affordable Commercial Space Bonus is available across the City of Portland's mixed-use zones, but it's not available in the Central City, the Gateway Plan District, or in historic or conservation districts. Can you go into why that is a little bit? Maybe I can have, Barry Manning is here from the Bureau of Planning. He might be
We can wait till the end too. What?
the best.
just- Sure.
Yeah.
Good.
So overview of the program is that it's voluntary. That's a question I've gotten through phone calls of, is this mandatory the way inclusionary zoning is? And it's no, it's a voluntary program. It's only in commercial mixed-use zones, and it's only for projects with 20 or fewer residential units. If you have more than 20 units, then you're going to have access into all of the inclusionary housing available FAR. So it sits next to the inclusionary housing program, giving all projects an opportunity to provide an affordability component on site. Developers can currently access this FAR, the bonus FAR, through the inclusionary housing voluntary fee. So there's no new FAR being put on the table by this bonus. And the affordable spaces will be leased to local businesses that are women-owned, owned by people of color, or are nonprofits that serve underserved communities, and that have passed a financial review by Prosper Portland.
Can you remind me how long is long time? When it says long time businesses?
Oh, it's about 10 years.
10 years, thank you.
Okay, so in the rules, a developer can choose from an on-site option, a payment into the Affordable Commercial Fund, and there's flexibility to combine those two if it's necessary. The main tool for the main affordability component is a landlord work standard. So this is requires the developer to build out a not a cold shell or warm shell, but a hot shell for the space, and there's also leasing components. So the on-site option, a developer would have access to 2 square feet of bonus FAR for every 1 square foot of on-site affordable commercial space that they provide. They're required to provide a hot shell or a high level of tenant improvements. This is a higher level of build-out than would typically provided by a landlord, including walls, electrical, HVAC, finish, ceiling finish, fees, restrooms, flooring, signage. So it's a whole suite that we're asking landlords to provide instead of having that cost be passed on to tenants. The leasing requirements that the tenants must meet this qualifying criteria. It's a 10-year duration. The lease terms will be reviewed by Prosper Portland. During that 10-year period, a landlord is allowed to re-tenant with businesses that have been approved by Prosper Portland, and then they're required to report annually. Similar to the inclusionary housing program, if at any time during that 10-year period, a landlord is found to be non-compliant, they're required to pay the full original payment into the Affordable Commercial Fund.
What's the definition of affordable commercial?
So in this instance, it's the suite of tenant improvements that the...
But what's the definition of affordable?
So the big challenge with designing this program is that it's not similar to housing affordability in that way, where there's an index that we could pick from that sorted through all of the characteristics like you would for housing affordability compliance. There simply is no index. So we really grappled with that with our partners on our tenant advisory committee and our partners and the stakeholders for this. You know, how can we define that if there's not really a national standard or even a local one? That's how we arrived at working really on the initial costs to keep it affordable. We see that many of initial leases are inflated because the costs of assembling the tenant improvements inside the space have to be paid back to the developer in the early parts of a lease. So by holding the line on that and actually providing this hot shell that Ms. Wicks is describing, cut down on the initial capital costs that a startup business would have to present, or a business that has not had access to capital in the past to pay for that or to even borrow for it. So that also is complemented by a form lease that we would review against the financial characteristics of their operating programs, so that we can help perhaps under-sophisticated businesses understand what the financial consequences of the long-term deal is in their lease. So that's where the technical assistance comes in. So it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. In the case of our pilot programs that we're running in Alberta Commons, Lents, and so forth, we're negotiating deals at the $18 a square foot with capped expenses right now, and that's at a market rate, but again, providing the hot shell.
Could I make a suggestion?
You may.
Because I don't think that's explicitly clear in this report what you mean by affordable, and it's the first logical question that one would ask. So, and I realize this is just a report that we're voting to accept, but in the report you have some clearly defined next steps. And I believe that that is intended to be encompassed in bullet point number 4 here on your summary: conduct market analysis and outreach to small businesses and business districts to refine framework and approaches. I highly encourage you to come to a consensus in terms of the specific definition, because I feel like we will, A, need to be able to talk about it and sell it, and B, we'll need some sort of a standard so it doesn't look like we're making subjective decisions based on who the developer is. I don't want to get backed against that wall. And so I'd really encourage us to refine that.
Will do.
Yeah, I would go a step further and say that it's going to be hard for me to accept these administrative rules, the report, without knowing, what are we talking about?
Right. I think one of the challenges we have, and I've heard you, it would be great to nail down sort of from a lease rate standpoint how we would define it, which is in fact where we started. The idea in the initial version of this was 25% less than market. We don't have a index that's reliable to tell us what market is, and market rates float from place to place, which is why we struck what we thought was a reasonable middle ground, which is to focus on what the business needs of the tenant are and to make sure that they could pay their rent, and we would negotiate the lease that would be characteristic for them in the market that they're at, that would make the space accessible. But I hear you. To define it more closely is what you're looking for, and we'll try to do that.
That kind of leads into what's going to be my later question, is how do you pick which businesses get these advantages? So there's obviously going to be far more applicants than there are available spaces. So if you're also looking at what can this particular business afford, that becomes even more mushy.
Right. So we have, as Allison's pointing out, we have the preferences being businesses of color, women-owned businesses, nonprofits that have not had, that are culturally specific or have not had access to the market as a target.
Hundreds of those.
Well, what's interesting and I think encouraging about this program is we're going to provide, in addition to sort of already the technical assistance that we provide small businesses, if they're ready to look at space, we're going to review their financial characteristics, give some assurances, not just to tenants in properties that we own or we have some hand in developing, but we feel that by reviewing their characteristics, setting a rent and establishing a boundary for them, and helping to, in effect, certify them as businesses that are creditworthy, there may be even additional interest in them for properties that we don't own. So these would be, in effect, kind of gold standard tenants that Prosper Portland and its financial analysts have gone through their records and see that they, in fact, can rent space, and we expect the brokerage community to be quite interested in that, especially if we're supporting them with additional business assistance to make sure that they're stabilized. So that's how we've tackled it, but I hear you that you're looking for a stronger definition of affordability, and I think, what we're presenting here in terms of administrative rules is, this is our pilot year with Planning and Sustainability Commission and our other partners in the Inclusive Business Resource Network that we participate in. We're working towards looking at our pilot phase, learning from it, and coming back with a stronger sense of guidelines as we move forward.
So I get what you're saying. You can't really ascribe a number to this or a percentage the way we do on the housing side, so I get that. My suggestion, and it is only that a suggestion, I think we need to strengthen, and you've picked broad criteria that I think are absolutely center of target as far as
So who we're
Prosper's
targeting?
goals around building an equitable economy and making sure that for me, what's attractive to this is we're protecting mom and pops, particularly those that have been in neighborhoods for a long time, and we're trying to prevent displacement and gentrification of those business opportunities as the neighborhood develops. But I think we need to be very explicit, crystal clear in terms of the criteria, because they are somewhat more, I don't want to use the word subjective because they're really not subjective, but they're not as iron or not as concrete,
Right.
maybe, as the work that we do on the housing side. And so the
Agreed.
more that we can do to say, these are the top 5 criteria and they are weighted in such a certain way, and the more explicit you can make it so that we can defend the decisions that we make, I think would be
About
incredibly helpful.
who we tap
Because
in
we
this.
also have to be able to defend, as Commissioner Fritz correctly raises the question, well, if you've got 2 businesses, both have applied, you give it to one and not the other, how well can you defend that decision? And the answer better be very well,
Yes.
right?
Agreed.
And why can't you go with a $18 a square foot definition or whatever it is? I have no idea what the going rate is.
So different rates exist in different places, and we're comfortable with the rate that we've settled on in our pilot projects where we have some concrete rights to the space. We've worked in the case of Alberta Commons with Majestic, who owns the site along with the natural grocers, to understand what the true costs are. But different rates apply in different spaces. So if you have a comprehensive build out, you could be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and each situation is going to look differently. Some businesses can afford some amounts and others can't. So depending on what their cost of goods sold are and sort of what their overall supply costs are. So we need to sort of look at the whole picture. If our overall goal is both initiating, supporting, and sustaining these businesses for the long term, which I think is really what our overarching goals are here.
I think a big part of the challenge is, depending on the industry, you're going to see huge variances in the profit margins. So restaurant versus retail versus service. So while you could probably average retail or commercial rents and then kind of arbitrarily decide this much less equals affordability, it's not going to be equitable across industries and across different neighborhoods. I do think you could look industry by industry and
Yeah, but then you
Neighborhood
like
by
quarter by quarter,
neighborhood.
neighborhood by
Yeah,
neighborhood. I think it's just,
I
the
know,
data
it's-
is tricky. So, but I think, you're sort of looking at the overall profitability index. Maybe one way to think about it is, there's often been discussed in housing that, folks should pay about 30% of their overall income into their housing cost. I think similarly, we're looking at the overall profitability of that business. How much space do they really need to be profitable given the kind of business that they're in?
Yeah.
And then can we kind of help develop a cap that can sustain them over the long term? And it really is an individual business by individual business metric. But I understand having a strong sense, Mayor, of, being, I think you said, crystal clear about the criteria of who gets in the program is manifestly important. And
Yeah,
we'll
I
endeavor to
think the
do that.
goals here are entirely laudable, and they're certainly consistent with my own objectives, and I know they're very consistent with Prosper's strategic plan, and it's a little dicier going out with a commercial bonus program relative to, say, the housing bonus program by virtue of the fact that there are more variables. But I'm just saying, and it sounds like I'm hearing my colleagues agree, the more we can do to really tighten that down, the better. And this is where your community engagement piece is going to be super important. I really want the community to buy in to these criteria and have the clearest understanding possible of what those criteria are. I mean, this should be an easy sell because it's a voluntary program. The goals are good goals, but let's not trip on ourselves by being squishy around the criteria, right? That's
Agreed.
all I'm saying.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback.
I may have missed something. We've mostly focused on new retail developments, but in these materials, I see that the program's intended to target both businesses that are launching and existing businesses that are struggling to afford rents. Have you covered that side of it yet?
Yeah, happy to go through it again, but in our targets are both long-term property, so we're kind of looking at who's been most impacted by the price inflation. What are we hearing anecdotally, because we don't have awesome research and data, but what we're hearing is these are long-term property owners that have been in commercial districts that are kind of historic corridors that are getting priced out or becoming marginal in their markets.
You mean business owners, not property owners, right?
The business owners, yeah, we're talking entirely about tenants here.
And in that case, it is a lot easier to determine what affordable rent would be, because
That they can afford for the folks that have been in business a while and they've metabolized what their rent rate is, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Did we hit all of our?
There's two options a developer can choose from: providing affordable commercial space on site, or paying into the Affordable Commercial Fund, which is pegged with the inclusionary housing, the same factor schedule that's used to calculate the fees for inclusionary housing. And then this is the last slide, so next steps are to continue to coordinate.
Because you just skipped over the end of that
Yeah.
slide, and that is the payments supporting this program, the framework. And again, it's not clear for that pool of money, how is that going to be used?
So we're proposing that this basically gets rolled back into the Affordable Commercial Program. So our strong preference is for the developers to use the bonus to actually build the space. If they elect to pay in lieu, our intention is to just roll whatever proceeds come into that back into the program to support future TI improvements across the city.
So basically staff time.
No, this, in all likelihood, would, one of the overall challenges for business support tangibly for Prosper Portland is often our resources have to be used in urban renewal areas. So our proposal for the payment in lieu fund is that would be prioritized in places where we haven't had money for capital improvements outside of TIF zones.
But again, that would not be for properties owned by the city, it'd be for properties privately owned, right?
Go ahead.
It would support the tenant improvements of business owners. So yes, those could be in privately owned buildings.
So again, I'm going to want to see exactly how are you going to dole those out. I mean, Commissioner Daly and I have just been through with you the process of allocating the small amounts of cannabis tax grants, both for business development and for community support and expenditures, et cetera. And we know there's a lot of need out there, and some applicants are more sophisticated than others. So I'm concerned about how that fund gets priority, who gets it. And I'm also continue to reflect the Planning Sustainability Commission's feeling that perhaps some of that money should be put into investments in the area that's getting the increased height to provide some mitigation of the increased intensity that wasn't zoned for. For instance, traffic improvements or bike parking or trees or something like that that is mitigation to the neighborhood for having this increased intensity. So is that something that can be looked at, or is that in the code, Mayor, do you remember?
I don't, to be honest.
We have not contemplated beyond rolling it back into the Affordable Commercial Suite of support, but we can certainly take that into consideration of mitigate. What I'm understanding, Commissioner Fritz, is the concept of using some of the funds to mitigate the impacts more generally in the neighborhood.
So Barry Manning, could you come on up, please, for a second? Because you can remind us what we actually approved in terms of code language.
Barry Manning, Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. So in terms of code language, what the council approved back in, I guess it would have been May 24th, as part of code reconciliation, were some amendments to the commercial mixed-use zones chapter in 33-130, and we had proposed, based on our work with Prosper, some changes in code. I don't actually have the strike-through underlined with me, but we had made some changes in the affordable commercial space bonus that really aligned the code language with the application of Prosper Portland moving forward in administering the program. As Kira had indicated earlier, an earlier version of this that Council had looked at when we adopted the mixed-use zones back in December of 2016 had pegged affordability for this commercial space program to 25% below market. I believe that was approximately where it was. And that number had been generated as part of the early studies of the mixed-use zones project. And what we found in working with Prosper Portland and the working group that they had put together, the stakeholder group, is that, as was mentioned earlier, was somewhat of an arbitrary figure and really hard to pin down in terms of indexing what affordability is in commercial space. There's so much variability, and that 25% below market was a good aspiration, but really was highly variable. So we changed it to this language that gave Prosper a little bit more flexibility to define the terms of affordability and the program in their administrative rules. So that's what you're looking at today. And the hot shell standards emerged as the preferred way to approach the affordable commercial space.
Okay, I'm not sure that it's defined as much as this. This sounds like another concept report rather than actual definitions. And my other question is, what does the code say about the fee in lieu and what that can be used for?
The code doesn't speak to the fee in lieu. Again, that defers to the rule or the administrative rule.
Okay, so we
Yes.
can say that, yes, it can be used for improvements in the vicinity of the increased height.
Yeah, the code, I don't believe the code, I need to put my glasses on to make sure, but I don't believe the code is specific about what the fee could be used for. That would be deferring to the administrative rule.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
There's then the question of, how do you decide what that is, or, but that's something I'd like you to explore.
Will
Is that-
do. Thank you, Commissioner. All right. So if there are no other questions, and I'm happy to take them at any time after our testimony as well. We meet with your staffs regularly and yourself. But I want to thank our colleagues at Planning and Sustainability, the commissioners, particularly Teresa St. Martin, Andre Bao, help me out here, Elisa.
Chris Smith and
Chris
Eli
Smith
Spivak.
and Eli Spivak, who were part of our advisory council and have been great supporters of this process, as have you.
Yeah, this is cutting-edge stuff, and there'll obviously be some improvements with time and some learning with time, and I'm sure we'll be coming back with recommendations and suggestions. So I appreciate your taking this effort.
I'll say one thing that the Planning and Sustainability Commissioners all agreed on, as well as our board, is that they want to hear how it's going and want to be reported back to. So
There
that's
will be
something we
monitoring.
committed to.
Ongoing monitoring.
I just had one
please,
question,
Commissioner
and that was the
Certainly.
decision to not include downtown Gateway, or Central Gateway and historic districts.
That's right.
Can I just hear the rationale?
Yeah. Central City and Gateway both have their own set of bonus structures.
Okay.
And the way our zoning code is set up is that if you have a bonus structure that is in place in a particular plan district, those tend to supersede whatever happens to be in the base zone. This affordable commercial space bonus exists in the base zone. So where you have really explicit bonus structures like the Central City does, that supersedes this. So it's not available in Central City and Gateway because of that factor. It's also not available in historic and conservation districts, and that was a decision that was made when the mixed-use zones project was conceived because of concerns about the additional height or floor area that might be allowed by bonuses. There may be a couple of other plan districts where we may need to sort out how bonuses apply as well because of some bonus provisions that exist in different plan districts. So there may be some limitations in some plan districts, but this bonus would generally be available in any commercial mixed-use base zone where the bonus is available, CM1, CM2, CM3, CE, outside of those plan districts in most of the corridors and centers throughout the city.
And I don't necessarily think this would be appropriate for this project, but I just want to kind of put a bee in your bonnet about commercial condos, because that's really, I think, probably the best way to protect small businesses from the whims of the market and to help women and minority business owners build wealth, is to give them an opportunity to actually own their space.
Yeah, Commissioner Daly's an excellent point. You know, a lot of the sustainability of many of these small precious businesses owed to the fact that they own their buildings and are not subject to rent pressure. I think we're really eager to dive in there and look at, we already have a long-term property owner program that's intended to look at where there are opportunities for those that own buildings to have stronger business fundamentals on that side. I think we could easily be talking about incentivizing commercial condoization in the next iteration of this. I think it's something that we're very eager to see, since wealth creation is really at the top of our agenda for equity creation in Prosper Portland generally. So I think it's an excellent idea, and we'll be working with you on how that gets manifested.
Okay, and I'm just curious, at any point in this process, did you look at I can't remember what the name of the program is in San Francisco, but it's really targeting historic and landmark businesses that are going concerns and contributing members of their communities, but who are at risk of being displaced through rising commercial rents. Did you look at their program? Because they're doing some really innovative stuff down there.
Yeah, I think we've kind of done a bit of a survey.
Okay.
Mayor Wheeler is right. We're at the sort of cutting edge, or leading edge at very least, of policies and programs aimed at the impacts of gentrification on commercial properties. So I'd be eager to hear any and all examples that you have. I think there's a learning community that's emerging on the West Coast. I was just up in Seattle working with their Ethiopian community group on some of these issues, and they're tackling it. So there's a learning community out there, particularly on the West Coast, that's eager to tackle this. And the market environments are not that different. So I think there's a lot of getting together and sort of pulling towards a collective future is worth doing.
We've had conversations with the Bay Area, Seattle, Gresham, City of Vancouver. I know New York City's working on things, just got an
DC is
inquiry from the
working on
City of
some
Bend
stuff.
this week. So it's a hot topic out there.
Yeah, best practice, always good.
So I think one of the things I'm struggling with, I don't actually have the administrative rules. They weren't filed with the piece. So if you could please get me the
Yes,
administrative rules, that
absolutely.
would perhaps bring some clarity. And then, Mayor, I just would encourage you we've got an expert on affordable small business space on our council. Obviously it's something that all of us are concerned about. So I would hope that your staff would be having conversations with ours and with us, as well as Prosper. I mean, I appreciate your monthly briefings for me. this is kind of a crossover between planning and business development of various other things. So more engagement of the whole council would be really appreciated.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea, and this is a new concept for the city of Portland. Other cities have been experimenting with it, and I would welcome that. So I will turn that over to my Able Prosper Portland team, and let's make sure that we have a broad engagement process.
Thank you,
Let's
Mayor.
take advantage of the offer that's been put on the table.
And with your staff, please, Mayor.
Very good. Just for the record, Prosper Portland is in my portfolio.
Okay, let me be
and
more specific with your office staff.
Who in my staff would you like specifically to speak with?
I would like to know who is the right person to speak with, because I don't know.
The mayor. Speak with me, and I will engage you on this process. Very good. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to accept the report.
Second, call the roll.
Daly?
Well, thank you for the report. It's intriguing. I obviously have lots of questions and ideas, and so I just look forward to further discussions. I vote aye.
Fritz?
Thank you.
It's hard to accept in a report when I haven't got the actual administrative rules and when there are these concerns. However, I know that you're going to continue to work on this project, and I would in particular ask both you and the Mayor's office staff to talk to Commissioner Daly. Aye.
Wheeler?
Thank you.
We will make absolutely certain we speak with all of our fellow commissioners on this subject. It's an important one. As I said earlier, more minds working on this, the better. It's a new policy. Let's get it right. The way we get it right is we include everybody. I vote aye. The report is accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler, Commissioner
good.
Fritz, and Commissioner Daly for your time and attention.
Colleagues, Robert has reminded me that I neglected one thing. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome to the Portland City Council. The City Council represents all Portlanders and meets to do the city's business. The presiding officer preserves order and decorum during City Council meetings so everyone can feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe. To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or the first readings of ordinances. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you are a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify, unless otherwise stated. When you have 30 seconds left, a yellow light goes on. When your time is done, a red light goes on. If you are in the audience and would like to show your support for something that is said, please feel free to do a thumbs up. If you want to express that you do not support something, please feel free to do a thumbs down. Disruptive conduct, such as shouting or interrupting testimony or council deliberations, will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being ejected for the remainder of the meeting. After being ejected, a person who fails to leave the meeting is subject to arrest for trespass. Thank you for helping your fellow Portlanders feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe.
Colleagues, as you will recall, item 690 was held over to today at 2:30 as a result of a lack of quorum. Commissioner Saltzman will be joining us by phone for this item. This is an item he put forward. Pursuant to PCC 3.02.025, Commissioner Saltzman is participating by telephone because he is traveling. Failure to allow participation of the absent City Council member by electronic communication would jeopardize the public interest, health, safety, or welfare. All other council members are physically present in the chambers. Do any of the council members who are physically present object to having Commissioner Saltzman participate by telephone? No objections. Bring him in.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
just to make a clear record, Commissioner Fish is not present. And-
That's correct. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And I think we're supposed to say he was invited to participate and is unable to, or something like that, right?
I just read the
That's
script that legal
correct,
counsel
yes.
gives me.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
I'm just the actor. I read the lines.
I've been here for a while. I know we're supposed to say that bit.
Very good. All right, so we're back to item 690. This is an ordinance. We have already had the presentation. We have already taken testimony. Is there any further discussion on this? Commissioner Saltzman, I want to make sure you can hear us.
Yes.
Very good. Any further discussion before we call the roll? Very good. Call the roll, please.
This is for 690.
690.
Increase commercial solid waste fees effective July 1, 2018. Saltzman?
Aye.
Udaly? Fritz?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye, the ordinance is adopted. Thank you, Commissioner Saltzman.
Welcome.
Next up are 693 and 694. They will be read together. They'll be voted on separately.
693, approve the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission fiscal year 2018-19 budget. And 694, authorized grant agreement with Portland Community Media for public educational and governmental access resources and to provide community media and digital literacy services on a citywide basis not to exceed $912,514. Also, Mayor, I'm sorry, I took in the sign-up sheets early, so if anybody wanted to speak for the public testimony, just come up here.
Very good. Colleagues, Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission is a long-standing intergovernmental partnership among Gresham, Fairview, Troutdale, Wood Village, Multnomah County, and the city of Portland. The cities in the county each contribute to the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission's annual budget, which funds about half of their operating budget. The council's special appropriation for the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission budget is slightly more than $300,000, and it's included in the city's fiscal year 18-19 approved budget. Portland's special appropriation goes to administer about $8 million in community technology-related benefits throughout the city and the rest of the county. The Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission also advocates for local authority and compensation for cable company use of the public right-of-way. I would like to thank Sue Disciple, and she's not here today, but Leith Hansen for their service on the commission. Citizen appointees who contribute hundreds of hours annually to represent the public interest in the ever-changing communications technology environment have a lot of hard work to do, and we're greatly appreciative of their service. So I understand we're going to start off with Leith Hansen, who's the Portland appointee to the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission.
Thank you
for being here.
Thank you, Mary Wheeler and commissioners. So my name is Leith Hansen. I'm the current chair of the MHCRC. I'm also one of the two Portland representatives that you've appointed to the commission. Beside me is Julia Mulchek. She's our program manager and works within the Office of Community Technology on our behalf. I'm going to just kind of run through a handful of our accomplishments. I won't do as much of the introduction since, thank you, Mayor, you did that for me. In front of you, you've got two documents. You've got the budget report, and you've also got our annual report. I'll kind of be referencing both documents as I run through sort of the highlights. Portland has two cable service franchises, Comcast and CenturyLink, and we provide oversight, enforcement, public benefit responsibilities for those franchisees within the cities and the county. As the annual report points out, the MHCRC deals with ever-changing technology to support community needs. Of those, local authority over public rights-of-way and compensation. We act as a consumer watchdog platform for community voices. Affordable broadband networks for schools, libraries, and local governments is in our purview, and local solutions for addressing digital equity issues. Over the past year, the MHCRC has provided many services to our communities and residents. We continue to work with public school districts under the TechSmart initiative. If you look at the annual report, page 4, you'll see that initiative detailed out. Portland Public Schools, David Douglas, Centennial, and Park Rose school districts all have active grants with us. Thus far, the MHCRC has spent over $11.5 million out of our long-term investment goal of $19 million on those projects. 210 classroom teachers in 6 school districts are now supported by these resources. The Community Technology Competitive Grant Round is the other grant program that we support. That's detailed within the annual report on page 6. We've funded 8 new grants this past year with community organizations and leveraged over $2.9 million in matching resources. These grants are responsible to needs identified by the community and support organizations to use technology in addressing those issues. For example, MHCRC grants are supporting the Boys and Girls Club in Rockwood and Outside the Frame to address the needs of their low-income and homeless youth. Multnomah County Libraries using its grant to develop an online database of digital inclusion resources so that community organizations can connect their clients to free and low-cost computer training devices. And the Portland Fire Bureau also received funding this past year to greatly improve network connectivity and provide equipment at 28 fire stations so that firefighters can take training online during their time at the stations. Affordable broadband has become more and more critical to our local public institutions. The MHCRC facilitates the institutional network, which is a public-private partnership with 18 public agencies and Comcast. Partnership provides high-speed, affordable broadband connectivity to 316 schools, libraries, public agencies throughout the county. The MHCRC, we're also working with the cities and the county on the long-term network planning for that institutional system. We provide funding and franchise enforcement support to OpenSignal. I would like to note that MHCRC has recently approved a 4-year grant agreement with OpenSignal, actually just this past Monday, for capital funds, and encourages the City Council to support the OpenSignal grant for city funding. This past year, OpenSignal and community members produced over 3,500 hours of original local programming. They also trained over 730 residents in digital media and literacy skills. Not to steal their thunder, they'll be up here shortly. The MHCRC addressed consumer protection issues, both broadly and with individual subscribers. For example, the MHCRC worked with cable companies on issues related to clear information to subscriber bills, on-time appointments, phone answering and time frame and service fees. There were 134 such complaints from this past year that we dealt with. And coming up in our fiscal year 18-19, the MHCRC continues to be engaged in a future focus planning initiative, considering the rapidly evolving technologies as they intersect with public policy. Our community's increasing reliance on the availability of broadband and renewed interest by the participating cities in each of your smart city planning initiatives. The MHCRC is working hard to adapt its role to maintain and grow its future relevance. We intend to work with you and your staff and our communities to identify needs and opportunities for our broadband future. The budget includes, a few comments with respect to the finances, the budget document that you've got in front of you. I'm happy to report that once again, the MHCRC received a clean audit for fiscal year 16-17. The full audit document is available on the MHCRC's website. I also wanted to note a couple of trends we're seeing in cable revenue. On page 9 of the annual report, you'll see 2 graphs that show these trends. The total number of cable TV subscribers remain about the same as they were roughly 10 years ago, and franchise fees revenues have steadily increased up and through the last fiscal year. However, actual revenues, as we look at those through first to third quarter of the present fiscal year of 2017-18, have shown a decrease over the previous year's quarters. So that's the first time in the 10-year window that we've seen that. The MHCRC has been closely watching these trends and anticipated implications for franchise fee revenues for local governments and for revenues that support MHCRC community grants and other programs. The fiscal year 18-19 budget reflects the projected decrease in franchise fee and PEG-INET fee revenues. The proposed 1819 fund budget primarily contains resources gained through cable franchise agreements and expenditures of the resources for purposes dictated by the franchises or in the intergovernmental agreement. Annual allocations from all the MHCRC jurisdictions collectively fund about half the MHCRC total operating budget. The remaining portion of the budget is funded by other resources, mostly to administer the dedicated capital fee, revenue, and related programs, such as the MHCRC community grants, the INET, and community media. Portland's allocation for fiscal year 1819, Mayor, as you mentioned, is $304,998. Or in another way of viewing that number, roughly 5% of cable franchise fees spent on regulation and program-related administration. Before closing, I want to thank the mayor and council for supporting this county-wide partnership since 1993. With that support, the MHCRC has been successful at convening community members, public agencies to steward and creatively leverage resources and regulatory authority to amplify the benefit for all. Over the coming year, we're excited to work with you to explore and discover how to leverage our success as we adapt to the evolving needs of our city and community. Thank you for your time today. As always, please contact me or the OCT staff with any questions, ideas, or concerns. And finally, I respectfully request that Portland City Council approve the fiscal year 2018-19 MHCRC fund budget.
Colleagues, any questions? Commissioner Fritz.
First, thank you for all the work that you do, Chair Hansen, and the whole committee. I think people really recognize, it's always astonishing to me when I get the annual report that this committee, this commission, first of all, you got to work with all the other jurisdictions, which is both an honor and privilege and a challenge sometimes. So I think that that's unique. That and the 911 board are about the only two. Excuse me a second. But second of all, we approved this budget, but it's you, the commission, who have put it together, who have decided who's going to get the grants, and you're spending, you said, $11 million. I don't know of too many citizen volunteer opportunities where you really have direction over that amount of money, and I greatly respect the amount of work and diligence you put in to make sure that it goes to the right places and that, building on the Digital Equity Action Plan. So I don't have a question except how do you do it? How do you? I mean, it must be hours and hours and hours of work every week.
It is a fair amount of work, yes, but it is a great privilege. As you mentioned, we're involved in some great programs. We take the responsibility of spending that amount of money very seriously, and we really could not do it without the amazing staff at OCT that we leverage to be able to pull it all together.
So now that you've had the experience of doing some of these grants and been working on the Digital Equity Action Plan, are there particular ways that the money is invested that seems to bring the most benefit?
Well, I think one of the really new things that we've done in the past few years has been the TechSmart initiative and thinking more than 1 year at a time. So trying to look longer term at some of the greater challenges, more systemic type challenges like classroom outcomes, student outcomes, in our high schools, middle schools. And to watch that evolve and now see the third year into that program, which will be this upcoming year, we're going to start really drawing more meaning from the grants themselves and the metrics that we're gathering along the way. And I think that has been very fulfilling to watch and to see. And I think that that's been a real change in just the last few years, how we've done things. And I really think it's for the positive.
Thank you.
Very good. Do we have public testimony on this or items 693 or 694, Carla?
Yes, we have two people signed up.
Very good.
Please come on up, Dan Handelman and Charles Bridgecrane Johnson.
Fantastic. You can just cool your heels. Good presentation.
Thank you.
We're going to hear from Open Signal as well.
I apologize. We've never had two agenda items moved together. And so we do have the Open Signal grant agreement.
And that's next.
Also, but
Why don't we go ahead, let's go ahead and hear that, and then we'll take the
Okay.
testimony together.
Thank you,
Are
whatever
okay
your
with that?
pleasure.
Good, thanks, great, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you. I know you all have had a very busy schedule and had to rearrange a couple things, so I thank you for bearing with me of
We are
having
not
two
too
agenda
busy
items
for this.
together.
No, it was my doing. I combined the two, and I believed I was supposed to do that, but we want to give you a full hearing on this because we love the work you do, so thanks for being here.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. So I'm Julie Omelchuk, and I'm a program manager with the Office for Community Technology. And I'm here today with Justin Harn and Rebecca Burrell from Open Signal.
Welcome.
To talk about the grant agreement that we are proposing, a one-year grant agreement that provides community media and digital literacy services throughout the city. I'd just like to take a minute to highlight a couple of things that have shifted from your last grant agreement with Open Signal. And then I'd like to turn it over to Open Signal to talk a little bit more deeply about their programs. So as you know, the Open Signal grant agreement supports the Broadband Strategic Plan and the Digital Equity Action Plan. More detail about specifics on that are in your meeting packet for today. But I wanted to highlight a couple of things more specifically in the scope of work. As you know, the Digital Equity Action Plan focuses on people of color, English language learners, and people with disabilities. And this new scope of work specifically calls out training, culturally responsive and relevant and affordable training for those populations to use media and broadband technologies competently. Another shift is around workforce development. We have two areas in the scope of work that are supporting those. One is for Open Signal to develop partnerships focused on assisting people from underrepresented populations to gain digital literacy skills needed for education and employment. And there are reporting metrics around that, and I know they're going to talk a little bit about keeping up on technology around workforce development. And then the next thing is offering internships to support people from underrepresented populations in developing career-ready and technology competencies and experience necessary for jobs in the digital economy. And one of the things in working with Open Signal over this last year on updating the scope of work was the realization that as a community media center, they have a lot of opportunity to have interns with them that they can help those folks gain digital technology skills, leadership skills, workforce skills, that they can then build their resumes on as well. And so we've built that into the scope of work this year for their grant agreement. And then the last thing I just wanted to note was Open Signal has been very active in the Digital Inclusion Network. I know a couple of your staff members and Mayor Wheeler attended the Digital Inclusion Summit. I just wanted to say that we've also, in their scope of work, talked about collaborating with other organizations throughout Portland to build community media and digital literacy capacity throughout nonprofits. As MHCRC Chair Hansen noted, the MHCRC has approved a kind of a companion grant to this one to provide the capital resources for Open Signal to fulfill its scope of work in your grant agreement. And in addition to that, to the digital literacy work, OpenSignal will continue to program the 6 cable channels, including the video programming from both your council meetings and your community budget forums, and also distribute that, that programming on video on demand on the cable systems and streaming over the internet. I think with that, I would like to turn it over to Justin and Rebecca for them to talk about their services.
Great. Before you do that, Dan, Commissioner Saltzman, I just want to make sure you can still hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler and commissioners. My name is Justin Harn. I'm the Executive Director at OpenSignal, Portland Community Media Center, and it's my pleasure to present this afternoon, sharing out our many successes as well as our goals for the future in support of next year's grant agreement with the City of Portland. We come to City Hall today at the culmination, as you'll know, of over 2 years of thoughtful planning, hard work, engagement to transform this organization to be more responsible, accessible, and vital than ever before. In 2015, the board of Portland Community Media launched a strategic planning process that set us on a course to reflect digital technology needs in the 21st century, make better use of our assets, and to take an assertive approach to addressing equity. This year, we've continued that, engaging Joy Elise Davis, Executive Director of the Portland African American Leadership Forum, to engage the community in comprehensive visioning to further inform our way forward. In the past 2 years, we've hired leadership staff, created new equity-driven programs, and renovated our building. Our staff and board are growing to more accurately reflect the community we serve. 57% of our staff and 71% of our board are people of color. Every city council session, committee hearing, and community meeting associated with the city of Portland is recorded for the public to see so we can further this message of democracy. Connecting people is our civic duty. In 2017, we broadcast a total of 148 city council meetings.
That means we sat through 148. Ouch. Thanks for the reminder.
We all went. I feel sorrier for her.
It's a lot of fun.
Sure it is.
We are the largest community media center in the Pacific Northwest with a 10,000 square foot media facility, 2 media production studios with full green screen cyclorama, and a large studio that's 2,000 square feet. OpenSignal provides 5 cable channels airing local and independently produced content, reaching 400,000 homes in the Portland metro area in 6 languages. The diversity of our programming is growing and evolving constantly to reflect the city's rapidly changing citizenry. One of the biggest benefits is our media equipment library, which is valued at over $650,000, including professional-grade cameras, lighting, microphones, iPads, MacBook Pro laptops, fully loaded with state-of-the-art production software, and more. The public is invited to check out this equipment in order to create content to air on our channels. We are a proud member of the Digital Inclusion Network and committed stakeholder to the Digital Equity Action Plan. We are grateful for the opportunity to support the Digital Inclusion Summit last month by offering resources, space, and staff connections to help lead the nation in the mission for digital access and equity, along with Comcast, Free Geek, Multnomah County Library, Prosper Portland, Work Systems Inc., Elders in Action, Portland Public Schools, and many others. We offer education in both English and Spanish at the best rates in the city. Our education for youth and adults provides affordable beginner and advanced classes covering Macintosh basics, camera and production studio operation, editing, animation, and more. This provides accessible workforce training for people who can't afford higher education or unpaid internships. For youth, we offer after-school programs and summer camp and a long-time partnership with Open School North, an alternative middle school for non-traditional learners who have left our public school systems. Our community events bring together the neighborhood on Northeast Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, where we are proud to be located, and provide screenings, immersive media events, and exhibitions. We're serving more of the community than we ever have. In a single year, we tripled the number of Portlanders that we engage through events, education, cable broadcast, production, and community partnerships. We continue to do more with our city dollars than ever before, incubating immersive video, virtual and augmented reality programming, providing cutting-edge, innovative, cost-effective storytelling modalities accessible to all. The future of OpenSignal is a new era of equity, access, and positive community impact and transformation through media arts. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Rebecca Burrell, and I am the Director of Strategy and Development at OpenSignal. All of our work, as you know, is completed thanks to the support and oversight of Julio Melchuk and the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission, or MHCRC. We are very grateful to the MHCRC for providing systems that hold us accountable to the city and to the public. Through the reports that we provide every 6 months to the MHCRC, we have been able to track the following recent highlights that I will share with you now. Last year, OpenSignal provided media training, TV broadcast, and community engagement to more than 5,244 youth and adults, more than tripling the total number of people we engaged over the previous year. We offered 95 evening and weekend classes to the public in English and Spanish, donating 100 spots to students in need. In the last half of 2017, 48% of our students reported annual income under $30,000 per year. We loaned our state-of-the-art laptops, cameras, and other equipment to the public for free for more than 150,000 hours. We broadcast 943 new programs produced by the community in English, Spanish, Russian, Romanian, Farsi, and Chinese through our cable channels. We provided 144-hour media training to more than 30 students at Open School North, a middle school for non-traditional learners who have left the public school system. We connected 15 high school students to mentors at local digital agency Instrument, which is just down the street from our space, through our free after-school program. We collaborated with Portland Workforce Alliance, Lentz Youth Initiative, Urban League of Portland, Vanport Mosaic, Women in Film, Media Institute for Social Change, and many, many other community groups. And last month, we instituted a membership program with a $1 annual fee, keeping our facility accessible for all. We know that the professional film and video industry is lacking in diversity. In fact, a 2016 study by the University of Southern California tells us that 87.3% of film directors are white and 90.4% of broadcast TV directors are white. So we are investing heavily in workforce development for media makers of color. The past 2 years, through a partnership with the Governor's Office of Film and the Oregon Media Production Association, we have placed emerging leaders of color on professional sets, including Grimm, The Librarians, Portlandia, and Documentary Now. This summer, we are really excited to launch a year-long fellowship program providing intensive training and professional production opportunities to emerging African-American media makers. We are also currently developing a female and POC-led in-house digital production outfit where up-and-coming media makers from underrepresented communities will be invited to take part in professional productions, gaining necessary industry experience and providing access to family wage jobs. And finally, I am happy to report that our Executive Director, Justin Harn, will be honored tomorrow as one of Portland's 40 Under 40 by the Portland Business Journal for his vision and profound ability to revitalize OpenSignal and secure our place as an essential part of the Portland community. Good. So thank you to each of you individually for your consistent support of our work and to the city at large for continuous investment over the course of our organization's 37-year history. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Any questions before we move to public testimony?
That's great.
We had two individuals signed up, Bridge Crane and Dan Handelman, I believe, were the two.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great presentation. We appreciate it. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler and City Commissioners. I'm Dan Handelman. Today I'm representing Flying Focus Video Collective. Flying Focus wants to be clear up front that we support the council agenda item to fund OpenSignal Portland Community Media for the next fiscal year. As beneficiaries of OSPCM's facilities for 27 years, it's difficult to say enough about how important their facility is to the public and to the underpinnings of our democracy. In February, Council declared Producer Day from the City of Portland to highlight the work of those who make programs at OSPCM. Flying Focus was mentioned in that proclamation. Thank you. And one of our members was hand-selected to give testimony. I was in the audience that day and was unable to testify because of a policy limiting public input on reports given to Council. We recognize that there's deep concern about cable subscriber fees starting to plummet as more and more people get their television programs through other platforms. OSPCM's intended mission is to make their facilities available to everyone, especially underserved populations. and they have done a good job getting the word out about their revamped name through aggressive marketing. However, they are now asking producers to pay membership fees on top of sometimes steep class fees. We urge council to join us in helping OSPCM find ways to fund this incredibly important facility without balancing its budget off the backs of volunteer producers. Producers put in dozens to hundreds of hours of time in order to create programs to fill OSPCM's channels. Years ago, PCM instituted a $50 per producer annual fee, which prompted quite a number of people to stop using the facility. Flying Focus as a collective decided to pay one membership fee to cover all our producers since we needed one program slot. That fee was wisely dropped a few years later and participation resumed. OSPCM's current policy is something they claim would be radically inclusive at $1 per person per year. They originally said they would not raise the amount, adding they would use a box of dollar bills in the front lobby to subsidize those who can't afford it. But soon after that announcement, they are now saying the membership is between $1 and $45. And if you want to donate $90, it will cover another person's membership. We've been trying to engage the board and staff in a discussion about how this is going to drive people away and threaten OSPCM's mission to no avail. We recently talked to a woman with years of production experience elsewhere in Portland who, prior to the membership fee, said she didn't want to learn how to produce at OSPCM because classes were too expensive. This was a chance encounter and not prompted by her expressing concerns. We asked the board to compensate for the compulsory membership fees by either allowing producers to vote on the board, as is done at KBOO and other community media organizations, or setting aside a seat on the board for a producer with 5 or more years' experience at OSPCM. They have done neither. One of 2 board members nominated by the mayor and confirmed by council has his term coming up this November. If the OSPCM board does not act to reserve a seat for a producer, perhaps council can consider doing so. Regardless, we encourage the mayor to take time to meet with the board members who are affirmed by council, since those appointees give the city a vested interest in the operations of OSPCM. We fully support the stated mission and operation of OSPCM, even though we have some concerns about the decisions being made currently. We urge you to support this grant, and we hope you will work with us to encourage the board to figure out ways to diversify funding without risking cutting out those who cannot afford their own equipment.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And I very much would like to take you up on that offer to meet with the board. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Oh, that's different microphones than across the river. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Charles Bridge Green Johnson, and it's always a pleasure to testify, whether he's speaking about Plain Focus or Portland Cop Watch. We learned so much from the testimony of Dan.
So I find the mics, they're very,
sure,
like
find
6
a spot
inches.
maybe right
Yeah,
there.
that's better, a little better.
Or even a little further away.
Yeah,
Thank you.
about 6 inches.
All right.
There you go. Perfect.
So, thank you. So they should have
And action.
And what a great class. We need to get these exact microphones replicated across the river at Open Signal so that we can all have experience. It occurred to me that there's 2 city employees, Scott Ellerston and Rebecca Gibbons, that dovetail with this work. So I hope that the comment that Mr. Handelman made about community representative on the Open Signal board, something that you all can engage with them about. And also, this is a great use of public service Comcast fee generated dollars towards meaningful life for people in Portland and to help people, especially that are low income on the wrong side of the digital divide, to connect. This is a sort of a sad week in Portland. We've had a resident who's so distressed about their inability to get traction with important issues that they've set themselves on fire and died here in our city, just 2 blocks away. So it's always an important work for this commission and our county commission to find ways that people that are marginalized can engage and have meaningful, productive lives, opportunities to get from despair, especially people who cannot, for whatever reason, connect with regular wage workplace jobs. So the other issue, I think, is I was glad that the public testimony was delayed until the second item because there was a little bit mention of digital divide. But I think that if you reflect upon what we just heard, there was a little bit of a shortage of numbers about actual impact we're having. We did hear great numbers about the board and inclusion in the administration at Open Signal, but it'd be great if there are some tools in the software that they have so that they know how they're doing a better job of actually connecting with communities of color and people of disability to really make meaningful action against, to breach the digital divide, to make sure that students at lower income and lower resource schools are equally empowered with award-winning schools like Lincoln. So I hope that maybe next year, when we have an even more diverse city commission with a woman of color sitting on it, go Joanne Hardesty, we will have some concrete nuts and bolts numbers beyond the great progress that's been made on the Open Signal board, and maybe even some testimony from individuals. I'm going to have to go have a little discussion with Ibrahim Mubarak. I know that they've done some great work and been very happy with Open Signal. Mayor, sometimes you're looking for bragging rights. It was noted that we have more community media space just at Open Signal than the other second-rate city up there in the Metro Seattle area. And that doesn't even include Portland Metro East. People who are listening at home, most of this information is best found just by going to mhcrc.org, which will link you to your community media. Thank you.
Excellent, and that's the perfect way to end it. Colleagues, any further questions before we call the roll? Very good. So this is item 693. Please call the roll.
Saltzman?
Well, thank you. I wanted to thank the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission in particular for its grant to help Portland Fire and Rescue become more, help our stations become more wired and connected to our community. It's a great step for everybody's public safety. Aye.
Udaley?
Well, thank you to the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission and to the chair for being here today, as well as our hardworking city staff. And Open Signal, I'm so impressed with how your organization is evolving, and these numbers are exciting and also exhausting, especially the 148 Portland City Council meetings that you broadcast last year. I'm hoping to find some ways to collaborate, whether through my office or through one of my bureaus. So let's put that on our to-do list for the coming year. I vote aye.
Fritz?
Thank you very much for the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission report. It's always astonishing how much work you do, and I particularly thank Leif Hansen and Carol Studenman, who are our city's representative, and looking at the rest of the board. It doesn't seem possible that so few people could do so much work, and thank you for your support of the staff. It is a new opportunity with the Office for Community Technology moving to being its own entity again. Sounds like there will be some vying for the mayor's attention in getting that assignment when the bureaus are handed out. So I look forward to seeing how we can continue to elevate the work that you do, and appreciate it very much. Thank you. Aye.
Wheeler?
Not everything we get to do in our 148 council sessions per year is always fun. Sometimes it's very difficult. This is very easy. We appreciate the report. We appreciate the fact that this is truly a community-facing organization. It's a fantastic partnership. It's inclusive in all the ways that we want to see inclusiveness take hold in our community. And I've heard so many stories from people who participate in various programs. Ultimately, this inspires people, it engages them, it brings people together, and potentially for people, it launches careers. And so there is also a personal and family and community prosperity message that's embedded here as well. Special shout out to Justin Harn, 40 under 40. That's impressive to be identified amongst all the people in our community who do great things. And there's so many young people in our community who are just exceptional leaders. So to be called out among those leaders is impressive. And the older I get, anybody under 40 seems impressive to me. So a shout out there as well. I'm very pleased to support this. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Item 694, please call the roll.
Saltzman?
Well, I wanted to echo the mayor's congratulations to Justin on his award tomorrow, and in general to just acknowledge the outstanding leadership that has been brought to Open Signal, including its name change, Open Signal. I think it's really brought a breath of fresh air to Portland Community Media, and I'm very pleased with the leadership and direction it's taking. Aye.
Udaley?
Well, congratulations to Jason, and thank you to the whole Open Signal crew. Aye.
Fritz.
Well, in the 10 years that I've been here, Portland Community Media and now Open Signal has really undergone a sea change, and I really appreciate the work that people have done. Sue Disciple has been on the board on and off for all that time, is still on the board, I believe, right? And has been truly another citizen community member who has helped steer it. For those who testified, you couldn't see the faces of Rebecca and Justin behind them, but they were listening intently, and I know that your concerns are their concerns. And so I'm really pleased with how Open Signal is serving our community. I believe it's a shining example of how we share resources, including access to media, access to how you do media, and that, of course, is the door opener for a lot of for access to information, for access to shaping the information, and I appreciate what you do very much. Also want to shout out former director Cece Hughley-Noel, who was definitely part of changing the direction, and I will always remember that. So thank you very much. Aye.
Wheeler.
Information is empowerment. Information is power. Digital literacy is at the heart of that. That's your mission. We support it. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Thank you. Great presentation. Fantastic testimony. Thank you all. Next item, 695.
Authorize a sponsorship agreement with Nike, Inc., the Portland Trail Blazers, and Verde to resurface basketball courts at city parks.
Colleagues, I want to thank Nike for being an incredible partner for the city of Portland. Today, Nike is partnering with the Portland Trail Blazers to make sure that nearly 100 basketball courts across 30 Portland parks and recreation parks are able to continue to serve our children and grandchildren well into the future. In addition, Nike donated over $2 million to the Portland Parks Foundation in 2002 to similarly help the city maintain recreation for all Portlanders. Nike's ongoing partnership with Portland Parks and Recreation reflects its commitment to the city of Portland and inspiring sports and physical activities for children as part of Made to Play, Nike's pledge to get kids moving through play and sport. Nike's contribution to the 2018 Portland Basketball Courts Revitalization Project is a one-time donation of $750,000 to the Portland Parks and Recreation to be used for the refresh of the courts in partnership with the Portland Trail Blazers. The Portland Trail Blazers are donating $1,000 a year for the next 3 years. Nike and the Trailblazers are also committing to support programming on the courts in collaboration with Portland Parks and Recreation. This is the type of business community. I'm going off script. This is the kind of relationship we want with the business community here in our city, one that supports everyone in the community and partners with the community. And both Nike and the Blazers have gone well beyond that. They've selected Verde to serve as the general contractor on this project. Verde has served the community since 2005 and most recently worked to bring Portland Parks and Recreation's Cully Park to fruition. Individual courts will be worked on from the fall of 2018 to the fall of 2019. This is Portlanders getting things done in a collaborative spirit. I want to thank everyone involved in this, but especially Verde, Nike, and the Blazers. This is proving again what we can do together. Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you. I also want to thank everybody for your partnership. As we all know, we have an aging park system, and we can use all the help we can get to keep it maintained. And this will allow some of our basketball courts to be fixed. I want to stress not all of them. However, I also appreciate that the list of 29 has been prioritized with equity in mind and making sure that those most in need are taken care of first. So thank you very much to Nike for your partnership. And thank you to the mayor who facilitated this agreement while he was in charge of the Parks Bureau during the budget process.
Very good, and I want to thank Commissioner Fritz for her outstanding stewardship of the Parks Bureau. I would like now to introduce Kia Sully, who is the Interim Director of the Portland Parks Bureau, Portland Parks and Recreation. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler.
Oops, I'm sorry, Kia,
Is the
could you
mic on?
hit the bottom button there, yeah.
There you go.
And then about 6 inches away.
Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners. My name is Kia Selly. I am the Interim Director of Portland Parks and Recreation. In 2002, in honor of their 30th anniversary, Nike generously donated $2.1 million to recondition basketball courts in 30 Portland parks. Anyone who's had the opportunity to play on or be in the proximity of these incredible courts over the last 16 years will notice they are much loved and well used. Earlier this year, Nike approached Portland Parks and Recreation once again, this time in partnership with the Portland Trail Blazers, offering an opportunity to revitalize the original courts from the 2002 project. Nike is contributing $750,000 and the Trail Blazers are contributing $300,000 for a combined total of just over $1 million. Today, we are proud to celebrate this unique and collaborative partnership, one that will increase recreation opportunities, honor diversity and inclusion, and encourage fun and play for all. As part of our presentation, you will hear from each of the project partners, Nike, the Portland Trail Blazers, and Verde. Our chief philanthropic partner, the Portland Parks Foundation, will also play an important role as they will manage allocated maintenance funding for the Portland Trail Blazers for future care of these revitalized courts. In the planning stages, Parks affectionately call this effort Project Unite. And in that spirit, we are here to share our collective goals and the community-minded motivation behind this exciting project. And we request that Council authorize Portland Parks and Recreation to execute a formal sponsorship agreement. I am pleased to start by introducing Carol Collymore, Nike's Senior Manager of Global Community Impact.
Good afternoon and welcome.
Well, good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler and commissioners, and I think a commissioner on the phone. My name is Carol Collymore. I am the Senior Manager of Global Community Impact at Nike, focusing on our work in Oregon. Nike is excited to partner with the Portland Trail Blazers to revitalize the nearly 100 basketball courts across 30 Portland parks and recreation parks. As you've just heard, this project builds on the 2002 anniversary project when Nike donated more than $2 million to the Parks Foundation in celebration of our 30th anniversary to resurface all the outdoor basketball courts in 75 days to thank the Portland region for being our home since 1972. Nike's ongoing partnership with Portland Parks and Recreation reflects our commitment to the city of Portland and to inspiring sport and physical activity for kids as part of our belief that kids aren't made to sit still, they're made to play. And play equals power. Kids who move do better in all aspects of their lives, on the court, in the classroom, in the community, and in their careers. We're thrilled to continue our support of Portland's courts with the Portland Trail Blazers, knowing how much they share our passion for kids, community, sport, and creating equal playing fields for all through access through quality courts and programming for youth in the region. We look forward to the courts being completed and celebrating with the city, and thank you so much for your partnership.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. The next partner duo represents the Portland Trail Blazers. Please welcome Michael Llewellyn, Vice President of Corporate Communications for the Portland Trail Blazers, and Trail Blazers Ambassador Bill Schonley.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Mayor Wheeler, Commissioner Fritz, Commissioner Udaley, Commissioner Salzman on the phone. It's good to see you all again. We thank you for your time and your attention. Our commitment to the betterment of this community and this region continues to diversify itself with creative initiatives like the one we're sharing today. And as our Trailblazers franchise sits less than 2 years away from celebrating its 50th anniversary season, we are and will continue to be partners you can count on here in Rip City. And speaking of Rip City, The man that I'm with really requires no introduction at all. He's been honored by the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame as one of the best sports broadcasters of all time. But of course, we know and love him here as our very own mayor of Rip City, former Trailblazer broadcaster and now Trailblazer ambassador Bill Schonely, who will say a few words. Bill?
Thank you, Michael. Mr. Mayor.
Good afternoon, sir.
You have your job, and I am mayor of Rip City, so we got to get together one of these days.
Excellent, excellent. I'll take whatever tips you can offer.
And Commissioner Fritz and Commissioner Daly. It's good to see you always, and thank you for adding your voice to the leadership of this community. No one enjoys a positive occasion more than me. And this is certainly a positive discussion we have. And having just turned 89 a few days ago, on the 1st of June, all bills come the 1st of the month. I just want you to know that. Not very many people have seen the positive outcomes of teamwork as much as I have over these many years. And that is what Project Unite represents in my eye, teamwork at its best. Good teams require good players. And you have them here with Nike, Portland Parks and Recreation Verde, and of course, our own Trailblazer organization. Each one of them bring their own skills, assets, and effort to achieve a single goal. And in the case of Project Unite, our goal is to not only renovate basketball courts in those 30 public parks, but to also further and energize basketball, open play outdoors, getting along with one another, exercise, and healthy living. These presenters are sharing with you the kind of information which I hope further explains what this is all about. We'll need you as supporters and advocates, both with your fellow city council members, but also in the media as needed. And if by chance our well-meaning motives meet with any concerns from local citizens, it is there for those kids out there. So thank you again for taking time to listen to the few of us here today. The experts and investors in this initiative are here to show unity and share belief in this product. Thus, the appropriate name, Project United. I think this should be nothing but a slam dunk. So let your conscience be your guide. And remember this too, you've got to make your free throws up there. It's going to make you feel much better for our community and for those kids. Rip City. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And I'm proud to introduce our final partner, Alan Hippolito from Verde.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I feel like I need to get my baritone on. I'm not quite resonant enough in my usual tone of voice. Mayor, commissioners, commissioner on the phone, my name is Alan. I work for Verde. In the words of your friend and mine, Ray España, it's a blessing to be with you here today. I want to share Verde's excitement about this partnership that's in front of us. As you know, per our mission statement, Verde serves communities by building environmental wealth through social enterprise, outreach, and advocacy. Through these social enterprise programs, Verde, what we do is we create environmental businesses, and we do that to employ and train low-income adults. We do it to create contracting opportunities for target businesses. By that, we mean minority-owned, women-owned, other social enterprises. And we also do it to bring environmental assets to low-income communities and Portland neighborhoods. These are structured as program areas of Verde. They sell these services in support of our tax-exempt mission. And so these enterprises include Verde Builds. It's a licensed general contractor that brings habitat, parks, and other new environmental investments to community. And I'm excited that Verde Builds will serve as project manager and general contractor on Project Unite. This will support our tax-exempt mission. It'll give us opportunities to identify subcontracting opportunities for target businesses. And of course, it enhances the already great partnership that we've built from the ground up at Cully Park with Portland Parks and Recreation. So thank you very much, and I certainly encourage you to authorize the sponsorship agreement, Make Your Free Throws.
Thank you.
We are grateful for the support and collaborative nature from each of these partners, and we are proud to be the recipient of such a generous gift. We anticipate revealing the court and backboard design late this summer. You saw some of those design options in the presentation today, and individual court completions will take place from fall 2018, this fall, through fall 2019. We now welcome your questions and comments. Thank you.
Very good. Colleagues, any questions at this point before we open it up for public testimony? I think we're good for public testimony. Carla, how many folks do we have signed up?
One person, Charles Bridge Crane Johnson.
Very good. Come on up.
Good afternoon again, Commissioners. Charles Bridge Crane Johnson for the record. And I think we'll just start off with a big thank you to Mark Parker and the whole C-Level suite out there at Nike. But as a private citizen with no invested financial interest, I can also say some other names. And one thing I think that would be great is that when we have a distinguished guest talking about his, I think he said 89th birthday on June 1st, I think it's great to also talk about lifelong commitments, and we could have lifelong synergy between the Phil Knight Foundation and the philanthropic efforts in Nike. We can have lifelong synergy between the Paul Allen Family Foundation and the charitable work of the Portland Trail Blazers. So there's room for even more giving from some of those ultra-huge foundations, Knight Foundation and the Paul Allen Family Foundation. We're very grateful for what the Trailblazers have done and what Nike has done, but as Commissioner Fritz noted, not every single park is going to be able to be resurfaced at the basketball courts through this program, so there's always room, because if the Paul Allen Family Foundation or the Knight Foundation doesn't want to step in, we can always ask Casper Rorsted if he has any money, or Mark King. Perhaps they have some money. So this will be great for our youth. It's great to know that the parks are prioritized, that that's been looked at with the equity lens, and to see that in the equity world, we have an interim, perhaps permanent parks director who's a woman, so that's always nice. Thanks very much, Nike Trailblazers, and all the team that came out here to do this great work for the adults and children using those courts.
Very good. Thank you. And with that, Carla, please call the roll.
Saltzman.
Well, I want to thank Nike and Portland Trailblazers and Verde and Portland Parks and Recreation for bringing us a fantastic Project United. It's a great partnership, and it's, as Mr. Schonley said, and happy birthday, Bill. As Mr. Schonley said, this is an investment in our kids, and that's what this is all about, and I'm very pleased to support it. Aye.
Udaley.
Well, you know Mr. Schonley's a professional because we have never met before, yet he pronounced my name correctly, so thank you for that. And while I am more of a bookworm than a sports fan, I have to admit there was a special thrill for me to hear you say my voice on air, even if it is cable access. This is a lovely project and partnership. Of course, I vote aye.
Fritz.
Well, thanks to everybody who is involved in this. Again, thank you to the mayor and his staff for sealing the deal at the 11th hour. And thank you to Julie Brim-Edwards, who's been a long-time supporter of lots of good things in our community. And I know that Nike is happy to have you on their team. Thanks to Verde. I want to invite everybody to the opening of the park built by Verde in Cully neighborhood on Saturday, June 30th, coming right up. Yes, the finishing line is in sight, and so it's like the Parks Bureau and like Verde. It's like you're no sooner done with one great project than it's on to the next. And so I appreciate all of the staff who are here doing that, and again, the community support. People in Portland and people in the entire metro region love our parks, and this is just another example of that. Mr. Shonley, thank you for, you've got to make your free throws. My son was on the Wilson High School basketball team back in the day, and I spent many an hour at the Southwest Community Center counting the 1,000 free through flows that he took that summer in order so that he was able to get his percentage up. And so thanks for reminding me of my son who's now far away in Chicago. Thanks again to everybody. Aye.
Wheeler.
Well, equitable access to sports is, for me, a very, very important benchmark for this community. And we all understand that access to sports can lead to other things. It can lead to better health outcomes. It can lead to more engagement in the community. It provides more opportunities for families to come together and do the things that families do together, and it can even lead to better academic outcomes. And so I am enthusiastically supportive of this, obviously, and I'm very proud of this partnership with the Trailblazers, Mr. Shonley, and Nike. I'm very proud that you came together with Verde. Verde is a very important community organization. They have a strong reputation for engagement, for including people and communities that are historically not the first to be considered when assets are being distributed or resources are being allocated. And so I think this is really a perfect partnership. And I hope it's the continuation of the partnerships we've seen in the past, and maybe also a harbinger of things to come. So thank you, everybody, for the hard work that you've put into this. I enthusiastically vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Thank you. Let's see. We are past 3:30, so we'll move on to the last item of the day, 696.
Establish a priorities framework for the City of Portland Smart City PDX initiative.
Colleagues, everywhere we look, technology is rapidly changing the ways we live, the way we work, and the ways we get around our city. But the direction of that change is not inevitable. We have an active role to play in determining how technology is used and how data is collected and shared in our city. As we work to create a smarter and more equitable city, we must start by listening. Mic drop.
On you.
Dan's gone.
I'm gonna try not to take this personally. You know, Dan would not have hung up on Bill Shonley. Get the mayor back in here. So as we work to create a smarter and more equitable city, we must start by listening to the people of Portland and assessing new technologies and partnerships alongside our values. If we don't, we risk technology happening to us rather than working for us. To accomplish this goal, we must prioritize data and technology investments that address inequities and disparities for people that have been left behind in our city, specifically people of color and people with disabilities. At the same time, we have an obligation to ensure that privacy is protected and rights are respected. This resolution established the city's commitment to the Smart Cities PDX Priorities Framework, a structured process for evaluating new technologies, uses of information, and related partnerships to ensure that they promote equity, address inequities and disparities in our city, and provide tangible benefits to the people of Portland. This process will allow the city to design solutions that work for the most marginalized communities, ultimately providing benefits for all communities. The Smart City PDX Initiative Priorities Framework is just the first step in achieving that goal. City staff must engage with the community to further develop the strategies to implement and uphold these commitments. Over the past several years, much of the national conversation around smart cities is focused on how government must shift the way that we think, operate, and plan in order to adapt to changes in the data and technology that leverage them for the public good. The very same lessons apply to addressing disparities in our community. The Smart Cities PDX initiative seeks to bring these ideas together by establishing the Smart Cities PDX Priorities Framework with this resolution. And with that, I will turn it over to staff. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council. It's great to be here. I'm Kevin Martin. I lead the Smart City PDX initiative for the city out of the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. Joined here with our partners from Office of Equity and Human Rights, the Office for Community Technology, and the Bureau of Technology Services, and our friends from Multnomah County. So Bill's a tough act to follow, but we'll try to move through this quickly and keep you entertained here. We are very excited to be here to present the Smart City PDX Priorities Framework Resolution. We feel strongly that this will really establish Portland as a national smart cities leader. We see this as a culmination of a week of smart cities activities here in Portland. We had a traffic safety sensor ribbon cutting on Monday that the mayor took part in. We had a US Ignite Big Data workshop here on Tuesday that a number of folks from around the region took part in cities across the country. We had the Global Tech Jam conference that's here through tomorrow that the mayor and I both spoke at this morning. And really, in our opinion, this is the most important thing that we will do this week, as this frames our approach to all of this work going forward and really instills the values that we have as a city in that work. When the Smart Cities Steering Committee was established back in May of 2017 by City Council, you all directed us to set priorities, identify focus areas, and establish goals for the city's Smart Cities work. This included a clearer definition of what we mean when we say underserved and underrepresented communities. The priorities framework resolution in front of you is a response to both of those directives. Every day, new technology are emerging that offer amazing potential to transform our cities. But cities aren't built for gadgets and sensors, they're built for people. The Smart Cities PDX Priorities Framework will guide the city's use of new technology to reduce inequities and disparities for people who've been left behind, specifically people of color and people with disabilities, and not just for today, but for the Portland communities of tomorrow. Mayor Wheeler, your outgoing Chief of Staff, Maurice Henderson, framed this commitment with our 2016 U.S. Department of Transportation Smart Cities Challenge proposal. The first paragraph of that proposal stated, "The core issues facing Portland are not unique. We need to improve safety, enhance mobility, address climate change, and create opportunity for all residents. The challenge is to address these issues in a way that ensures equity is at the center of this paradigm shift." This framework is our answer to that challenge. And it's not an end, it's a beginning. Adopting this framework kicks off a conversation with the community about the problems we should focus on and what technology and data tools we will use to solve them. It starts by building trust. We will approach the community with humility from a perspective that we do not have all the answers, that we want to empower them to help us find solutions. It also recognizes that we had to develop an internal strategy as a united city before engaging in those conversations. It's truly been a citywide silo-busting conversation. This framework is a product of our Smart City Steering Committee involving 14 different bureaus and all 5 commissioners' offices. And the resolution itself and the framework itself was created in partnership with Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, Office for Community Technology, Office of Equity and Human Rights, Portland Bureau of Transportation, Bureau of Technology Services, Commissioner Fritz's office, and the mayor's office. So this is really a cross-agency effort. Our goal was to establish guiding citywide values for our smart cities work that are not specific to any bureau or bureau leadership. No one bureau owns this framework. It's owned by all of us. If adopted, Portland will be the first city to formally declare what it means to prioritize the most marginalized and vulnerable in our smart cities work. We know that resources are limited and there is only so much we can do, and that these projects are resource intensive because they are often experimental, involve learning and failure. We are also overwhelmed with opportunities to partner with the private sector and academia. We will need to make choices. This framework prioritizes the people and the problems where our work will have the greatest and most meaningful impact. Cities become smart by learning. There's a long history of decisions in Portland and other cities that either intentionally or unintentionally negatively impact our most vulnerable populations. We want to learn from those mistakes, focus not on those with the most influence and means first, but on those with the least. The city will, of course, continue to pursue a variety of data and technology projects and policies. This framework simply establishes that if they are not addressing the needs of underserved and underrepresented communities, they will not be recognized as part of the city's Smart City PDX program. The next step is to work with the community on an implementation and engagement strategy. We have brought in a consultant to begin those conversations. Having this framework in place will also help us shape projects already underway and better address technologies coming at us in the short term. We need to build a long-term strategy at the same time we address what's happening now. We all recognize that smart cities is a marketing term created by the private sector to sell us stuff. This resolution is our attempt to take ownership of it, drive what it means from within, and to make it focused on people, not products. The private sector is going to continue to provide technology-related services to those who already have the most. This framework is really disruptive. It's our attempt to influence the market as the city in a way to make sure that all those benefits reach Portlanders, all Portlanders. I've been asked a couple of times what we want this program to look like in a few years and what we want the future Willamette Week cover to say. Our open data coordinator, Hector Dominguez, I think has the best response to that question. It's the street roots cover, the street roots cover that we want, he said, because that would mean we have demonstrated value to those who need us most, that we've built trust in those communities. This resolution is a significant step toward achieving that goal. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Christine Kendrick from my team, who has really done most of the heavy lifting on this framework and resolution to get into the details of how it came together.
Thank you, Kevin. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Christine Kendrick from Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. I'll be talking through the content of the framework and some next steps as well. So when we look at the Portland Plan, Comp Plan, Digital Equity Action Plan, Racial Equity Toolkit, and many more, these plans clearly establish the City of Portland's commitment to equity and implementation of strategies that reduce disparities. So the Smart City PDX Priorities Framework uses language and values from those plans, but tailored to data and technology and information strategies to set a goal, process, and criteria for centering and upholding equity in the Smart City PDX initiative. The first section of the framework outlines a process that will guide city staff in how data integrated with community engagement will be collected and used for decision-making within Smart City PDX projects and policies, and also decision-making for investments in future Smart City PDX projects. Some example of this process is a commitment to engage underserved and underrepresented populations to inform data collection and also have those populations lead in identification of needs and priorities and solutions. And we know from previous work that the most detrimental disparities or persistent disparities are present or starkest when we look at race and disability. So when we say underserved and underrepresented communities, we mean an explicit and intentional focus on communities of color and communities with disabilities. And as the mayor said in his opening, when the city designs policies, programs, and practices that work for the most marginalized communities, all communities benefit. The next section of the priorities framework outlines criteria for vetting and evaluating Smart City PDX projects, plans, and policies. So if a community partner or a private sector partner or academic partner comes to the city and proposes a project and wants city support, which could be staff time or expertise, it could be investment of funds or access to infrastructure and assets, but it does not meet the criteria outlined here, then we will not support it as a Smart City PDX project. These criteria really help us vet the multiple and often competing opportunities that are coming our way, sometimes at a very intense pace. It will allow us to better allocate resources and coordinate and standardize our values into our decision-making process. And it also gives us a very clear starting point for evaluating our Smart City PDX initiative projects. So really, if we think about combining the process in Section 1 and the criteria in Section 2, it starts to give us a way to filter through all those different emerging opportunities, make sure that we're focusing on our equity goals, and really being thoughtful about how we use our resources.
So I just have to comment on that that is a great lens. That is a very well thought out lens. And I just want to point out that this could be broadly applicable.
That's wonderful to hear. We think so too. And well, the equity work group, it really was a collaborative effort to come through this. Lots of discussion and how to reword it. What's the best way? How do we cover everything?
Yeah, that's
or
great.
Try to.
That's great. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler. The last part of the framework lists 8 focus areas based on, again, existing citywide plans. And right now we're working on a strategy map project to help broaden our Smart City PDX work beyond transportation. And part of that work is also to see where we're making connections between existing and upcoming projects across all bureaus and offices, and where are those gaps between projects and the community identified needs, and where we need to make sure we're filling in those gaps. The priorities framework has been endorsed by the Smart City Steering Committee, and as Kevin mentioned, 14 different bureaus and offices, and all commissioners' offices involved in that committee. If adopted, we feel that this will create a citywide coordinated approach for deciding how and when and if to engage in work. It really also implements equity values and strategies across an entire initiative. It's not something separate or an overlay or something we do afterwards. It's really centered at the beginning of the work. And we think that embedding this thought process from the very beginning can actually spur more innovative approaches to projects and result in increased measurable community benefits. Adopting the framework is really just the first step, though. Next, we need to work with our community partners to implement and evaluate our success in meeting the framework criteria. We also need to go back and look at how we can apply the priorities framework to existing Smart City PDX projects. If we think about the air quality testing that we have already implemented or ongoing, maybe some of the traffic safety sensors and open data, all of these can still be applied through this lens. How are we sharing data? Can we improve that? Can we add more iterative evaluation to it? So that will be an important next step as well. And then, of course, applying it to identify and prioritize future projects as well. And a part of that strategy map work, we're also exploring strategies to develop those community partnerships and the means to support that community involvement. One option is potentially creating an equity advisory committee, and that would help us evaluate how well we are actually doing in centering and upholding equity. But we also want to look for other types of innovative community engagement so that we're not just creating transactional engagement processes, but how do we create true partnerships and implement strategies that can be agile and responsive as community needs change, and then also how technology changes quickly. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Judith Mowery from the Office of Equity and Human Rights.
Thank you. Hello, Mayor, Commissioner Fritz, Commissioner Udaly. It has been a great pleasure to work with this team. This project has been firmly focused on equity in a really strong way, and that's been a great pleasure to be a part of a group of committed people. The Smart City PDX Priority Framework, it's a great first step toward meeting our obligations as a city to be accountable and proactively address disparities in Smart City PDX projects, plans, and policies. With this framework, we can better prioritize projects that are driven by people's needs, such as anti-displacement projects or economic development for business owners or entrepreneurs, from communities of color, and from people living with disabilities. The cross-bureau collaboration established by the framework and implementation work ahead can help us to move on a path exploring solutions that result in paradigm shifts, create real power sharing and partnerships across community members, private sector, the local government on data and technology projects. In this work, we need to remain cognizant of how vulnerable communities may be affected by various privacy issues when it comes to a range of data types. Creating proactive privacy policies for the city will be an essential next step and connection to this framework. Creating proactive comprehensive privacy policy provides direction for considerations on implementation of everything from transportation projects to public safety projects like police body cameras. I'm excited that we are really looking at this issue in a proactive way. We want wise counsel to guide us and our thinking about it. Technology is moving way faster than we tend to, and we want to be sure that we get the greatest benefit. I'd like to make one last comment, which is to say that when we talk about people living with disabilities, we are also really talking about aging populations. It is the most common age group that you are going to find folks developing disabilities. So in our world, age and disability are often, the age is a proxy for disability. So I think it's also really works well within our aging Portlander framework. I think there's a smarter word for that. I know I'm one of them, but I can't remember what we're calling it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to bring up a few more speakers just from our Bureau of Technology Services, Office for Community Technology in Multnomah County.
Welcome.
This is your afternoon, Julie.
It kind of is. So I'm going to start off this group. I'm Julie Omelchuk, and I am with the Office for Community Technology. I also served on the Smart City Steering Committee Equity Group that came up with the framework to move forward today. The Smart Cities PDX Priorities Framework establishes commitments and criteria for city staff across all bureaus and offices to take actionable steps in line with the city's equity goals and to foster deeper collaborations and partnerships among city staff. With this policy direction from Council and buy-in from all city bureaus and offices, we believe this framework will improve communications among city staff and with outside partners, leverage our city resources, including staff time and physical assets and infrastructure, and build community trust. The Office for Community Technology is excited to work collaboratively across bureaus under a unifying vision and process to better serve Portland residents. As you know, our office has a history of working with diverse populations to identify their needs around community technology, and we've leveraged public benefits related to our franchising and licensing authority to meet those needs. The city's broadband strategic plan and digital equity action plan also have public benefit-oriented goals and strategic actions designed to overcome barriers to digital access and economic opportunity. We look forward to furthering the city's internal network of information sharing around the Smart Cities work, and also developing integrated strategies that will enable us to negotiate impactful public benefits in our franchise and other utility agreements that directly address a community need. The Smart City PDX Priorities Framework is a welcome tool that will help us to design and implement community-supported solutions that are well integrated with efforts of other city bureaus and offices. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm Liz Mitchell with the Bureau of Technology Services, and I was also a member of the Equity Work Group for the Smart Cities Steering Committee. The city needs a proactive, responsive, and adaptive basis for how the city approaches and prioritizes data and technology projects associated with Smart City PDX. The priorities framework will help us move in that direction. The framework can be used to help prioritize city interests and investments in those projects and services that promote the city's equity goals. This gives us a guide for selecting investments that provide the most benefit to the community. This framework guides us away from implementing technology just for technology's sake. Instead, this is a framework for using data and technology to improve people's lives. As long as we keep that ideal ahead of us and turn that ideal into action, we'll go in the right direction for the community now and in the future.
Good afternoon. I am one of, I think, the aforementioned friends of the Smart Cities PDX framework from Multnomah County, Mary Lee. And I am, I think, the representative social worker in this group. I don't work in technology and I don't work in transportation, but I do work with people. We and my colleagues are a part of the Regional Smart Cities Initiative, and we're thrilled to be invited to the table as you do this important work. The Multnomah Idea Lab is charged with finding policy and innovation in human services, not in the IT sector. And that is sort of a rare occurrence in local government. And we're also very focused on the intersections of poverty and race. So being able to be invited to this table along with all of the wonderful staff people has really been an opportunity for us to share innovation back and forth, and to support each other in figuring out the very real challenges to a racial justice agenda within local county government. In particular, the Mill has been working with the Bureau of Transportation on building our practice of human-centered design. So this is a practice that very much is used to design products and businesses, but there's also a lot of potential in using this to really engage with the community in co-creation, not a community engagement process, not a feedback process, but in true co-creation of whatever the solutions are that we are going to figure out together. We're super excited. We've just begun a 9-week learning community with our colleagues at PBOT, and we are going to practice our human-centered design techniques and then be able to bring them to bear in this conversation. We think it's incredibly wise that the group has figured out a framework and made the commitment, if adopted today, to apply that framework. I think, Mayor Wheeler, as you remarked, this has applications far beyond smart cities, and certainly that's part of what we're looking to do, is to learn from you all, frankly, and be able to bring that practice back and forth. This is one of a number of collaborations that we're working on right now with you all, and we really believe that when both jurisdictions are working together, we all benefit. The community benefits and we all benefit. So we are in strong support of the framework. We appreciate being asked to the table, and we are looking forward to co-creating with you and the community as we roll out the implementation of this framework. So thanks.
Great, fantastic. Commissioner Fritz.
Can you tell me how it came to be that you were invited? Not that I think it's great that you were, but that's not generally the practice. So
right.
How did that come about?
Well, I think actually the people at the table started to ask themselves, how might we approach and engage with the community in some different ways? I think all of us who work for local government understand there are real challenges to the ways we do community engagement now, and I include the county absolutely in that. And I think my colleagues said to themselves, how might we be better, do different, in order to get to a different result?
Yeah.
Right? And so then through a variety of conversations, I have to say it was very funny. We walked into one meeting and it was all data, technology, computer folks. And my colleague and I walked in and we're like, we're here for the smart cities conversation. And we're like, we want to talk about what the people need, and we want to talk, and everyone looked at us and said, you know this is the data and technology work group, don't you?
Yeah.
And we had nothing to add, right, at that point. But that is emblematic of what I think the opportunity is here, right? So we are thinking differently about smart cities and how that might intersect with our goals around economic justice, racial justice, housing, and the things that the county does. And I think your staff are thinking differently about how they might engage in a collaboration with the communities.
That's fabulous, and thank you for being willing to walk into a room full of data geeks and hold your own.
It's a classic.
Well, and when I look at the 8 focus areas which come out of the Portland Plan and the comprehensive plan, of course they should be asking the county, we should be asking the county about human health, environmental health, all of these things are our joint.
Mm-hmm.
So in many ways it verifies that making the comprehensive plan more than just a land use and transportation document, but more of a what is Portland and the Portland area going to become, has led to this kind of collaboration. So I really appreciate your being here today and your participation.
Thanks for including us.
Very good, thank you. All right, so with that, is there any public testimony on this item?
Mayor, there is an amendment, I believe you have.
An amendment that I have. What? In my binder. Hang on, let me find the amendment.
It's a replacement Exhibit A.
Oh, I've got it. I moved the replacement Exhibit A.
Second.
Well, I got beat to the punch on that.
And you know what? This actually addresses something that I brought to the committee's attention. I'm pretty excited about it. And thank you. Shows that I didn't read my binder before either, Mayor. It previously said the goal was to use data to address inequities and disparities through investing in technology-driven projects that improve people's lives.
Oh my God, that's a brilliant idea.
Well, Yes, and like Ms. Lee just said, are we talking about the people or are we talking about the data? So the new goal is, the City of Portland Smart City PDX initiative goal is to address inequities and disparities using data and investing in technology-driven projects that improve people's lives.
A better idea.
Thank you.
Is that a motion?
It was. I moved it, and Commissioner Daly
All
already
right,
seconded.
good. Let's call the roll on the amendment.
Udaly?
Aye.
Fritz?
I don't know why I'm astonished when people actually listen to something I've suggested and do it, but I'm just, you've made my week, never mind my day. Thank you very much. Aye.
Wheeler?
I think it's a brilliant amendment. I strongly support it, and Mary Lee, we're thrilled to have you here and be part of this. And you're right, this technology, it's not really a technology discussion, it's a people discussion. It's about the outcomes that our public wants and expects from us. And the question, therefore, is what technologies and what policies actually help us address the needs of the people in our community. So I strongly support Commissioner Fritz's amendment. I think it's great. I vote aye. The amendment's adopted.
Thank you. I do actually want to point out, too, that there were two other pieces to this amendment to the exhibit, and that is addressing what Judith Mowry said in terms of privacy. And I didn't think of that one. Whoever did is brilliant, and I think that's another really good addition.
Great. And public testimony. Good afternoon. Do we just have the one? Yes. Where would we be without you today?
Charles Ridgecrave Johnson, and perfect presentation, but since Mary Lee came across the river, I'll make one small mansplaining attack. She talked about walking into the room of data geeks, and she had nothing to add. Those were bad data geeks. The only thing that matters is UX, user experience. The way data geeks create good user experience is talking to end users like Mary Lee and myself. So the experience is, especially with the amendment, we're talking about data as a tool to improve quality of life for everybody in Portland. So one thing we're going to have to change is when you go to portlandoregon.gov/smart, none of your pictures come up. It just takes you to Smart Park. We need something better. There's some other good shortcuts. Your last names work to take people to contact with their commissioners. But when you go to portlandoregon.gov/smart, there should be a page that lets people choose between cars or this, Smart City PDX. And that's, there's some other things that could be shortened up there. I noticed it was great. I think the table where we had the Bureau of Technology Services, we're doing great with diversity. We're running neck and neck with Nike. We had to look them up earlier. Their general counsel, not a man. So progress is being made here in the metro area. And, but I don't want to, all the carless people on TriMet don't want to go to portland.oregon.gov/smart and find out about parking. We want to find about Smart City PDX. Y'all have reserved the Twitter. The other thing you might want to do is smartestcity.org or smartestcity.com should probably redirect to portlandoregon.gov. Thank you.
Very good. Good suggestion.
That's a really good suggestion. That's one of the most helpful mansplaining I've heard for quite some time.
I didn't feel mansplained to it at all.
So sometimes we overcome our genetics.
I was actually more worried when he got to the part about how when you Google Smart Portland, our picture doesn't come. I thought there was going to be a joke or a punchline coming there. So
no, it's just
I'm glad it was actually a good suggestion. So with that, any further questions, colleagues? Let's go ahead and call the roll on the main resolution as amended.
Udaly?
Well, thank you to the steering committee and for everyone that presented today. This is an exciting conversation, and I'm particularly happy to see someone here from the county today. I serve as second chair on the Joint Office of A Home for Everyone, and without going into too much detail, I see a lot of opportunities for greater collaboration between the city and the county, and I began to wonder who are the counterparts that kind of would complement the bureaus that I have. And the next day, I ran into a woman from the Office of Community Involvement at the county, and I said, we should talk. So we're going to talk. This is fantastic. I vote aye.
Thank you very much to everybody who's done such a lot of work. And I want to particularly call out the members of the Equity Work Group who have really foundational to this framework, Christine Kendrick and Ingrid Fish from Planning and Sustainability, Liz Mitchell from Technology Services. Thank you for being here today. Janine Gates on my staff is ill today, but she has been really foundational in asking the right questions and helping to form this. Rebecca Gibbons and Julia Melchuk from the Office for Community Technology, Judith Mary, Office of Equity and Human Rights, and Zan Gibbs in the Bureau of Transportation. So those are the folks who have done a lot of this work, and it's a framework which now, as the Mayor said, everybody can and should use. And so this is a good way to be the last agenda item of a somewhat tiring week. Aye.
Wheeler.
Well, it was a prolific week, and I think this item ties it all together neatly. The city is changing, technologies are changing. This now gives us the beginning of a platform for helping us to evaluate new technologies, the uses of information, how we prioritize those technologies, and how we really use them to support the community, particularly through an equity lens, and both identifying and supporting communities that have historically been left behind. And those are, of course, communities of color and people with disabilities and others. And this framework puts Portland in the lead of cities that are addressing these issues. And so I'm really proud of the collaboration that's been brought here today. It's built on a foundation of work that's been undertaken for some time, and I particularly want to shout out my friend and Chief of Staff, Maurice Henderson. He'll be going on to bigger and better, but he spent a tremendous amount of time in his previous role working on the U.S. Department of Transportation Smart Cities Challenge on behalf of the City of Portland, and he's certainly helped lead my office's engagement around this subject. And as my colleagues have indicated, there have been so many people at the city, at the county, in the community at large who've had a hand in this, and all of our presenters today were really fantastic in helping to reflect those different perspectives and different communities, and it goes much broader than that. And again, with this framework, this is really only the beginning. This is the foundation upon which we are going to build a much larger community engagement, and it'll help us focus, which will be a fabulous thing. So great way to end the week. Thank you, everybody who worked so hard on this. I vote aye. The resolution is adopted as amended. And we're adjourned.